Tell you what pisses me off. And again, I don't give a This is ridiculous. And the military should be embarrassed by what I'm about to say. Oh my gosh. The rate, military rate of well, I don't know if you can say that word on YouTube, but the rate, so many guys are taking their own lives. It's crazy. No, it's not crazy. What's crazy is that the system hasn't recognized that the system reinforces self-destruction. We are designed and trained and indoctrinated to constantly give to the group and sacrifice and self-destruct for the group and never take away from it, never ask for anything, never be a moment's problem to the group, always give, never take. We are bred that way. And then one day they go, oh yeah, now you should be the 180-degree opposite. Oh my God, he didn't talk to anyone for help. Yeah, no fucking shit, dude. That's what you bred into us. So it's not shocking to me that guys are taking their lives. It's shocking to me that the system hasn't recognized the true why and started to change it.
So with that, I guess what would your recommendation from a 30,000 foot view system standpoint of how you, breed a warrior culture where you do focus on team gear, your gear, you, if as a team, we're going to be stronger. Like how do you kind of reconcile or leverage that where you get a balance where you can still be competent and super effective as a warfighter, but also take care of you? Like how do you balance that?
I mean, it's a complicated question. I think that there's a lot of ways. I'd say two things. I'm going to use just two examples because it's infinitely complex. One is there needs to be an entire paradigm shift in how the military, as well as the VA and just everyone has to look at this differently. And everyone has to stop looking. And by the way, I'm going to add this about people taking their lives. No one sees it as when someone's taking their life, what do they basically say at its core? And I think this is pretty not debatable. At its core, if you take your own life, you're basically saying, I have no innate worth. I mean, you're saying that by the act of what you're doing. So right there, it's pointing to what I'm saying is the core problem. But two, you're also saying, and I think this is the other piece. Again, you have a warrior and a destroyer. People taking their own lives are doing so because they think they're the destroyer.
Well, I think to your point in the lack of self-worth is that's a huge part of it that I think is the most largely misunderstood is that most people, I think if you ask them that, why do people take their own life? It's because they've given up. Whereas people, you can see at the Hanoi Hilton for 7 years, like human beings will not give up under absurd circumstances. Yeah. So it's not a matter of giving up. It's a matter of feeling like they're not worth anything. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yes. And then I think there's a part B to it. The part B, and we identified this, and again, it's our theory, we know this definitively, but we think the person thinks they have no innate worth because they're a destroyer. They also think they have no innate worth and they think they are the destroyer. They think they're fundamentally bad. But they're designed for protection. I think a lot of people that take their lives, specifically veterans, are doing so as a last act of the warrior of self-sacrifice because I have so little value. The world, my family, my friends would just be better off without me. So I think a lot of times that happens, it's they have no self-worth, they feel like a burden, and they go, you know what? It's because they are still actually the warrior. They're not the destroyer, but they don't know that. So the last act is to take themselves out of the equation as self-sacrifice, which again is something, it's a mentality that's been programmed during your whole active life. A grenade gets thrown on the ground, you jump on it. I feel like they're jumping on their own grenade because that's how they feel. And it's an act of self-sacrifice in their minds. It's an act of self-sacrifice because they have no innate worth. It's like their last hero action in an inverted way. So I feel two things. One, I feel like everyone needs to change their concept on why these things are happening. Why is the problem? And again, let's look at this. If PTSD was the problem, 20 years ago, you could say, well, PTSD is the problem, but the suicide rate is what it is because no one knows about the problem. So if we raise awareness and get the awareness out there, then the rate will go down. It hasn't. It's increased. Why? Simple. Because the problem is not the problem. So I feel that people need to have a new conversation and go, okay, we've obviously been wrong. That's demonstratable by what's happened. What could it actually be? And we're hoping that this book starts that conversation. The other part of it, I believe, that is actionable is I believe the military needs to do an infinitely better job on transitioning out. The way the military does it is you're on the train, you're on the train, you're on the train, you're getting out. Great. Have a good one. Oh, there's an ACAP process. Yeah, come on. You've been in for 10 years. You spend 3 months, you work on a resume that no one gives a shit about. There needs to be a process that takes all these issues that we know are issues now. We know it. It's not debatable. And we need to incorporate those issues, identity, loss of all these things. And we need to put all these education pieces into the getting out process. Hey, I know you've been sacrificing for the team for 10 years, but guess what? Now you're getting out. Now it's all about you. Now you need to take care of you. And there needs to be a reprogramming.
A new adaptation.
You're indoctrinated when you come in. Like, let's be honest, that's what the military, that's the beginning of the military. There needs to be a re-indoctrination into transitioning into civilian life.
There's probably no way, I guess my next question is historically speaking, there's probably no way to even find data, let alone validate it. But I am curious if there was any even thought put into, let's say 2,000 years ago at the height of the Spartan and, warrior and Roman Empire, where there was, strangely or ironically enough, way more emphasis put on the detransitioning out of wartime environments, largely due to logistics, is that they had to spend 3 months hiking back and they spent time with their guys sitting around fires, not in combat, et cetera. But I would love to know if there's even a way to figure out if the suicide rate among veterans back in those days was at all close to what it is now.
I mean, the statistics I don't think exist, but let me tell you, we did do research on what you're saying, and the contrast is striking. But here's what I think the fundamental difference is. And again, there's many things we could say. The fundamental difference in my mind is when a Spartan went to war, Spartans held for up until and Lauren said this at the beginning, up until relatively modern times, the warrior had value post-war because the warrior was seen as a value to protect the village. It's been that way for thousands of years. It is only recently that the warrior is seen as unnecessary.
Yeah.